Hello everyone, today I'm going to show you how to add a new element to your to-do list. So the first thing, I'm going to create a new input element. It's going to be of type text, and I'm going to give it a placeholder of new to-do. And if we go back to our user interface, we can see we have a new input. And of course, we're going to need some kind of new button to submit. So we're going to call it add to do. Now it should work. Okay. We can add, we can type, but right now click on the button doesn't do anything. So the first thing is we're gonna need some kind of state to track what the user is typing. So I'm gonna create a new state and I'm gonna call it new to do, right? And it's gonna be an empty string by default. Okay. Now, so we're gonna have to track this new to do. So each time the user types a new character into the input, we're gonna update the new to do. So in order to do this, I'm gonna add an onChange event. An onChange is called whenever the input changes. So onChange is gonna take a callback, a new anonymous function. And in this function, we're gonna set the new to do to the event target value. So we're gonna need the event here. And like onChange, when it's called, it gives you the event, and that event contains the current value of the input. And to access it, you type event.target.value. And you can see that it says it returns the value of the data at the cursor's current position, which is right now like the current input. Now that we're tracking the actual value, and obviously in this case, we're gonna have a tracked input. So I'm gonna have to track the value of the new to do. I'm gonna show you why I did this, because right now it should work. So if I do this and I go refresh the app, now as you can see, whenever I update, you can see that it's updated, right? Okay. But what if, for example, when I add the to do, I want to reset this input, right? So whenever I successfully add new to do, the input should reset to an empty string. Now, in order to do this with JavaScript, like actual code, and in order to have it like reactive with the React state, we're gonna have to pretty much track this value manually. So instead of having the input be tracked by itself, we're gonna track it manually using the value property. So right now it's gonna be value equals new to do. And as you can see in this case, we have the string. So if I delete them here, you can see that it updates, right? So when I modify the state, the input updates. But if I don't track the input like by using state, if I add new stuff, it's updated. But when I modify the state, you can see that the input isn't updated, right? So right now the state is an empty string, but the input still has like text inside of it. So in order to pretty much handle this, we need to have what we call a controlled input. So in React, whenever you set the value of the input using your own state, this is called a controlled input. And when you don't have a value attached to it manually, this is called an uncontrolled input. Now, for now, we're gonna keep it as controlled because we wanna, when we modify the state, we want the input to also update. So as you can see, right now, whenever we update our input, so for example, do the dishes, the state is updated, and when we clear it, the input is also updated. Okay, so that's great. And right now, so now we have the new input, and now we need to actually add it, right? So we have a new button that says add to do. So in this case, I'm gonna create a new function, right? And I'm gonna call it add to do. Now what this function does, it's pretty much gonna add a new object to our array. So in this case, I'm gonna create a new object. I'm gonna call it new to do object, and it's gonna be equal to so I'm gonna have a random ID. The text is gonna be the text that's being tracked in our state of the input, and the completed is gonna be false by default. Okay. Now we have the ID as random because, like I said, the ID should always be unique since we're mapping through it here. I mean, random isn't exactly the best way to do this, but it's gonna have to do for now. Now that we have the new object, we're actually gonna add it to the new array, right? And to do this, we're gonna use the spread operator that I showed you before. So I'm gonna create a new to-dos array. And as you can see, it's gonna be a new array, and we're gonna spread the original array. So it's gonna contain the old to-dos, like these three, and then it's gonna add the new to-do at the end of the array. And for example, if I wanna add the to-do at the start of the array, so I'm gonna have to put the to-do before I spread the array. So this is gonna be the new to-do, and after it, it's gonna contain the old to-dos. And this makes sense because I always want the latest to-do to show up on the top of the list. And now that I have the new to-dos, I'm gonna set the to-dos to the new to-dos. And now we have a function that actually adds the new to-do. So I'm gonna call this function whenever you click this button. And everything should work now. So if I go back and refresh, just in case. So I'm gonna say, do the laundry. And when I click add to do, you can see that it's added at the start of the array. And it has the same functionality as before. You can toggle it completed or not, and you can delete it. So yeah, this is the simplest way to add a new to-do to our list. But as you can see, there is some kind of a bug here because when I add a to-do, the input doesn't reset. So we have to do this manually. And this is why I track the input using the value prop. So what we want to do is after we add a new to-do, we want to reset the input. So it's very simple. We just set new to-do to an empty string. So we create the new to-do, we create a new array with the to-do, we set the new to-dos, and then we reset the input. And now everything should work. So I'm gonna create a new to-do. I'm gonna say learn React. I'm gonna add to do, it's added, and the input is reset. So yeah, that's the simplest way to add a new element to the array. And as you can see, this is basically a small form. It's not exactly like a semantic form, but it's a simple form that adds a new element to the array. And yeah, so in my next video, I'm gonna show you how to modify an existing to-do. So yeah, see you in my next video.